Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Easy for me to say. It's been a long day. We are here. AEW Allin has just gone off the air from Wembley Stadium in the United Kingdom, setting a record of over 81,000 paid fans in attendance. The keyword there, paid in attendance, setting the record, surpassing the paid attendance record of WrestleMania 32. Of course, it's not the most attended wrestling event ever. That was the Collision in Korea show in North Korea, but that attendance wasn't paid for. It was kind of mandatory at the time. Nevertheless, they broke the record tonight, and to be honest, I think it was a show that delivered. I think it was a show that was fun. I think concern going into the show, wasn't it? And we'll get into the matches and we'll get into your thoughts, we'll get into your ratings, your opinions and all that kind of stuff as we go through. But I think there was a concern going into tonight that look, AEW's billing up as the biggest pro wrestling show of all time. It's AEW's biggest show in their short history, a company that's been around for just over 4 years. Can they live up to the hype? Can they live up to the expectation? Realistically, just can they do it? Can they pull it off? And I think that is tonight an evidence that they can do it. They can pull it off. And I think the outcome of what they have done tonight, particularly with the main event, in extending this story is the right move. It would have been very easy. It would have been very tempting to pull the trigger on a turn. They know that's what they're waiting for, whether it be Adam Cole, whether it be MJF, they're waiting for it. And sometimes use WWE as an example when it comes to, for instance, the Bloodline storyline is, squeeze it out for as long as you can. Wait for the right moment. Now is not the time. Now is not the time for that to happen. So, indeed, I think they delivered. I think it's a show that was reflective of the occasion. I think that it's a credit to AEW as well for pulling it off. And just in terms of the production value alone, it's the biggest and best looking show AEW has ever done. It's not easy to do a stadium show. It's not easy to pull off that level of production. And I think AEW did it. Was it completely perfect? No. Was it a 10 out of 10? No, but it was a very, very, very strong show. And I think there will be the critics and the naysayers of AEW and, wow, tickets distributed and wow, WWE WrestleMania 40. I think that if you're a pro wrestling fan, even if you don't like AEW, I think you have to appreciate the achievement. I know people won't. Again, I know people won't, but I think you should appreciate the achievement of what AEW's been able to do today. And look, they're going to try and do it next year. They're going to try again next year. August 2024, around the same weekend, they're going to do it again. They've booked Wembley Stadium. Let's see if they can sell more tickets. But this clearly, all in, people were asked all the time, didn't they, about pay-per-views. What's AEW's equivalent of a WrestleMania? What's their WrestleMania? Every company has their biggest event of the year, don't they? Whether it's WWE with WrestleMania, whether it was WCW with Starrcade, whether it was Impact, TNA, it was Bound for Glory or Slammiversary, depending on how you look at it. With New Japan Pro Wrestling, it's Wrestle Kingdom. Everyone's got their biggest show of the year. Whether it was World Class, it was at the Cotton Bowl shows and all that kind of stuff. What is their biggest show? Clearly, AEW All In is becoming their WrestleMania. It's not a one-off. They're doing it next year. I'd be surprised if All Out was in the same place next year. That should move. But this is their biggest show. It's the biggest, again, a paid show in terms of ticket attendance of all time. It's their highest gate of all time as well. And again, whilst some would say, I was expecting the big moment, I was expecting the turn, I think evidence is showing, again, I think particularly if you look at WWE, is that you've always got to leave the crowd wanting more. And will that translate into anything next weekend? That's going to be the interesting one. I don't know how they do next weekend, and I think next weekend is going to be an indication of maybe next year we don't have All Out 7 days apart. Now, obviously, there has also been quite a lot going off camera tonight at AEW All in Wembley Stadium, particularly behind the scenes, particularly backstage, with this physical confrontation between CM Punk and Jack Perry. Now, I'm not going to go into it too much here because we're going to do a separate video on it. We're going to get as much information as possible. The information is kind of dripped out throughout the evening. CM Punk was actually in the ring for his match when the news broke that there was a physical confrontation backstage. At the time, that's all we knew. Then we got more details, seemingly from Punk's side of things, or the CM Punk camp, CM Punk team side of things. That's now kind of been disputed. We've got reports that Jack Perry was sent away from the stadium, told to leave. CM Punk is still there. I'm doing this live now, so I don't know what the media scrum is looking like. As I mentioned, as news continues to come out, I will try and get more information, but I can promise you there will be a video on this tonight. There will be a video on this tonight, and we will try our very best to find out what's going on with that, because that is a big story and one that I do think is going to continue to develop. So, of course, if there's any more information that happens whilst I'm live, I can only multitask so much. So if you want to let me know in the live chat, do just that. We've got over 100, nearly 150 people watching. So if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Before I get into the matches, I want to get into some of your comments as well, because I know actually some people were in the stadium and didn't know about that. So Lil Yo-Yo, who is actually in Wembley Stadium today, says, LOL, there's a confrontation. Yes, I don't know if people that were at the show know this. There was a physical confrontation between CM Punk and Jack Perry. We know that, absolutely. What we don't know is legitimately what happened. There were reports that... So, again, you might not have seen this if you're inside the stadium. So, just to give a very brief timeline of what happened. Jack Perry had his match. In the match, there was a whole element of it that was surrounding a parked limo, a car. He had a car service as part of his entrance. And there's a spot where someone goes through a windshield of the car, and Jack Perry looks into the camera and says, it's real glass, cry baby, or cry about it. Something, I'm paraphrasing there, but he says it's real glass, cry. And basically, after the match, by all accounts, according to one side of the report, Jack Perry comes back, confronts CM Punk, shoves him, and then CM Punk shoves him back or pushes back to him. There's a verbal altercation. Jack Perry goes for him. He gets choked. That gets split up. Jack Perry's told to leave the stadium. That's one side of the story. Another side of the story, Miro specifically, is saying it's false and BS. There are some people's versions saying that Punk threw a punch or tried to throw a punch, and he might have instigated it as well. It's very brawl-outish. It's very all-outish as to what's happened. And the irony is, it's like near enough a year to the day. It's near enough a year to the day that Brawl-Out happened, and it kind of might have happened again at All In. This time it's a week earlier. On the biggest show in AEW history, there is a subplot, and the subplot is CM Punk and Jack Perry got into like a physical fight backstage. Jack Perry's not in the stadium anymore. CM Punk reportedly is. So that's all we know at the moment. So again, we will find out more about that. We will try and find out more, but that is the latest news coming from Fightful, is that there was a fight, or there was a physical confrontation, altercation. Some people say Jack Perry started it and he got choked out. Some people say that he didn't get choked out. Some say Jack Perry was asked to leave the stadium. Some say CM Punk started it and threw a punch. We don't know. We genuinely don't know that at the moment. And I'm sure people at the stadium are probably just finding out about it right now. And this CM Punk, Jack Perry thing has been bubbling for the last few weeks, but there's sort of denials that it even happened and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of wild as to really what's going on at the moment. There is, again, a media scrum, so I'm sure someone must have asked or will ask about it. I am sure Tony Khan will say nothing on it. That's all we know at the moment. We've got over 222 people watching, so if you haven't already, click the like button. We're currently at 33 likes. Let's see if we can get to 50. Be sure to subscribe as well if you are new. If you do subscribe, you should appear on the screen next to me here, and the ticker will go over as well. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe as well. Right, let's get into the matches. And as I mentioned, if we get any more news if we get any more news regarding what's going on with CM Punk or Jack Perry or anything like that, we'll mention it whilst we're live. As I mentioned, there will be a video later where we kind of collate all of that information and put it together. Tony Khan has just tweeted as well, saying, thank you all who watched AEW All In at London today. Whether you're one of the 81,035 fans on site, the largest paid crowd in wrestling history here live at Wembley Stadium, or watching on pay-per-view, we appreciate every single one of you. We're back here for All In 1 year, August 25th, 2024. So also, again, that's breaking news coming out of this. They did announce it at the end of the pay-per-view. They're doing it again next year. They've booked the stadium again. And that's what's going on there. just seeing what Sean Ross Sapp has tweeted as well. He's tweeted, someone asked him, any update on Punk's situation? I have a feeling we could be headed for Brawl In as opposed to Brawl Out. Sean Ross Sapp has tweeted, I think we've heard the extent of it from Punk's side. I'm gaining details from others as we speak. So they're kind of suggesting that, again, that the stuff that we have heard, is more so from maybe Punk's side as opposed to Jack Perry's side. But there was, I think, one thing that is, well, I say that's confirmed, not totally confirmed, because I think Miro's saying that it's bullshit, basically. He's denying that it was even a thing. I don't know if Miro's actually posted about that. Here we go. Miro has posted about it. So, once again, Wrestle Purist tweeted out, according to one side of the story, it's claimed that Jack Perry approached CM Punk backstage and, quote, stepped in his face and, quote, bumped Punk. Punk was said to have then pushed Perry. Perry, quote, allegedly came at Punk and got choked. Miro, who was obviously at Wembley Stadium today, he was in the ring for a contract signing segment as one of the first things they did on the 0 Hour show. Miro has quote tweeted that and said, quote, that's fake and untrue. So he's denying that event even happened, which again is just more crazy stuff. Really, what's going on there? So, man, I mean, the drama, and this is the unfortunate thing, isn't it, is that this is the biggest show in AEW history. They've broken records for today's show. It's going to be their highest gate, their highest attended show, broke the record for paid attendance as well, probably broke their pay-per-view record, one would think too, and there's an undercurrent of this story. And once again, we don't have all of the details on the story. There's one part that's saying this happened, and other people are saying, well, it did happen, but it happened this way. There's other people saying it's not true. So again, there's lots of different bits of information there. Let's get into the matches, starting off with the 0 Hour show, and we have brand new Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. This was the first match we saw. The literal first match we saw before the pay-per-view even started involved the main event participants, and we have brand new Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions in MJF and Adam Cole. They defeated Aussie Open. Aussie Open not holding the titles for really that long. It must be said, I thought the match was so much fun. The crowd at this point was red hot. And for all of the discussion and for all the talk of, was this the right thing to do? Was this the right thing to do to put them on the pre-show? It's a risk. What if they get injured? What if they get hurt? What if they do this? What if they do that? I believe it was the right move. And I'll tell you why it was the right move. I think there's several approaches why this was the right call. One, obviously it added more to the main event. These guys are tag team champions now. So you ask the question, are they going to even turn on each other as tag team champions? Would they do that to each other? I can't believe they would do that to each other. That's one part of it. Two, when you've got, over 81,000 people getting into that stadium, you want to make sure they're in that stadium as early as possible, because logistically it can be challenging. We've had instances recently over here in the UK for Premier League football matches where kickoff has been delayed due to difficulty getting into the stadium, whether it's issues with ticketing or whether it's just issues with traffic, whether it's just problems, again, the slowness being able to get actually into the building. Sometimes if you tell people, yes, the show starts at 6, the pay-per-view starts at 6, but you should probably be there in your seat for 5 o'clock, because come 5 o'clock, there's going to be a tag team match involving, again, the main event participants. So it's kind of wise from that point. And also, look, too, pay-per-view buys. It drives pay-per-view buys. If you were watching this on YouTube, and you were on the fence, I don't know, there's a lot of hype about it, but I don't really watch AEW that much. I'm a WWE fan, but, it's a big event, so maybe I'll see what the 0 Hour is saying, and then I'll have a look at it. If you watch that, and you watch the match, and you watch the reaction, and you watch the crowd, and all that kind of stuff, you'd probably think to yourself, hey, maybe I should buy this. I'm going to buy this. Look at that crowd. They're red hot. Look at that crowd. I mean, I want to see what happens in the main event. I want to see the rest of these matches. So I think it was multi-pronged there. And this is the kind of the genius when it comes to MJF and this whole storyline. MJF, the finish of that match was MJF doing a drop kick as a kangaroo. Yeah, the kangaroo kick. He did a drop kick. And then they hit a double clothesline. Over 81,000 people went crazy. That is some kind of special talent in today's day and age. For everything you have to do to get a reaction out of pro wrestling fans, because we've seen it all. We've seen dives, we've seen blood, we've seen jumps off of, stadiums, scaffolding, fire, barbed wire, and the show had that later on. They threw everything at the wall. To get over a drop kick and a double clothesline to make the show explode, that is, again, for me, I think that's an incredible achievement. And I loved it. I thought it was a fantastic match, and I do think it was the right move to add more into the main event. So, I enjoyed it. I did. I very much did. Marc-Andre Roy says, Miro didn't say anything against Punk, plus Miro wasn't on the card. Well, unfortunately, Marc-Andre Roy, that is where you're wrong, because Miro's literally tweeted it. It's literally, I'm staring at it now, where he says that's fake and untrue. Miro wasn't on the card, but he was at the show. He had a segment on the show. He was on the 0 Hour show. He did a contract signing with Powerhouse Hobbs really, really early on the pre-show. So he was there. He most likely would have been in the gorilla position at the time because it was around that period of time. And he literally tweeted it. So that's a difficult one to kind of disprove. If this was in a court of law, I'd probably say the evidence does not look in your favor with that kind of statement. That's a tough one. That one, Marc-Andre Roy. Nevertheless, let's move on. If you haven't already, click the like button. Got nearly 300 people watching. Let's see if we can get to... we're nearly at 60 likes. We're 1 like away. See if we can get to 65 or 70. And remember, be sure to subscribe to, in the bottom right-hand corner, FTW Championship. Speaking of which, this is where this all started. Right. So, for the entrances for this match... Jack Perry's entrance was he had a car service. He came out. He was driven. It was not a limo or anything like that. It wasn't a limo, but he was driven out, and it was FTW Championship, so it's FTW rules, which ECW rules. Anything goes basically. No disqualification. Do whatever you want basically. And a lot of the match was centered around this car that was parked on the stage. So you had spots where there was suplexes on the roof of the car. There was suplexes into the glass. There was being thrown into the car door and all that kind of stuff. And as I mentioned, this was the point of contention. And you could see it coming. Once they were going to do the spot where someone was going to go into the windshield, I thought, that's ironic because the real glass. I could already, when you can already see the memes or you can already see the tweets of people are going to be going, that's real glass. So he does that and he looks directly into the camera and says, that's real glass. Cry about it basically. And at the time I thought, well, he must have had that cleared, because if he didn't have that cleared, surely you wouldn't reference it, right? Surely you wouldn't. That is a backstage story, a story that's been put out there. CM Punk and Jack Perry had a confrontation over a segment at Collision whereby Jack Perry wanted to use real glass, and it wasn't just CM Punk, in fairness, that said no. Other people, I believe Tony Schiavone, who is a producer, an agent, a coach, whatever you want to call, was against using real glass. A lot of people were against using real glass for that spot. I think justifiably so. If you know your wrestling history, don't use real glass. It's dangerous. It's unpredictable. Bill Goldberg nearly lost his arm using real glass. WCW, he had a spot on a limo where he was bashing through the windows. And I believe the windows were meant to be frosted glass, sugar glass, whatever you want to call it. They were meant to be that, and they were real. And Bill Goldberg put his arm through the limo door, and he severed an artery, and he nearly lost his arm, and he was out of action for a really long time for something really stupid. So when I read that story initially, I did say to myself, why the insistence on using glass? Are you trying to prove that you're a tough guy by using glass? Because if it was me, and I was working backstage, I would be like, well, I'm not particularly impressed. Like, just, pro wrestling, it's all about an illusion for me. Pro wrestling, yes, it's about realism, but it's about the illusion of realism. You're meant to be protecting yourself, and you're protecting your opponent and your career. And it's all about the illusion of looking good. And sometimes the best way to make it look real is to do it real. I understand that, but I didn't really understand I've got to use real glass before the segment. I'm not sure what it was, to be honest, but I found that a bit odd. And for instance, if this was in WWE and you said, I want to use real glass, and they said, no, we're not using real glass, that'd be it. End of story. They'd no, we're not doing that. Publicly traded company, it's too dangerous. No, we do it this way. You get permission, boom. That's it. So I found the story odd anyway. Going back to the spot, he says it into camera, and I thought, well, again, knowing these rules that have come out now since then, he must have cleared it through a producer or something like that, because there's checks and balances. According to the report, I would guess he didn't clear it, and that led to a problem. Nevertheless, match goes on. Eventually, they make their way into the ring. Eventually, Hook locks on his submission, taps Jack Perry out, and wins the match. He's FTW champion, 2-time FTW champion. That's the story when it comes to that one. And I thought the match was good. I thought it was fun. I actually enjoyed all of the stuff around the car. I thought it was fine. I thought it was a good pre-show match. And then we then get into the main show, which we'll get into in just a second. But I did think at the time, well, he must be sort of poking fun at the report to say, oh, it's bullshit, it's not true. And yes, and then we get more nonsense. So yes, Hook is the brand new FTW champion. Then we get into the main show, the actual show. This actually kicked off the show. Let's start off, just staying in the chat as well. Luyo says, I got there at 4:30. Eric Roman says, speaking on Miro's tweet, even more reason for him to shut up. Tell me when I'm telling lies. And Austin Baker says, ask Abyss, look at his arms. Go Blue says, what if this is all a work with Jack and Punk working together on Friday? The problem is, it's the same way that people, like with the Brawl Out situation last year, and said, what if it's all a work? And we get caught in this in pro wrestling. And I know we get caught in it because everything's a work, right? But there are some things that legitimately aren't, you know. It was like last year. For the longest time, it's a work. It's just a work. You don't get it. They're going to be facing each other at Wembley. Wembley's come and gone. They have not faced each other. And there's still an issue, clearly, between them. It's all a work. Don't worry, it's all a work. Montreal, it was a work. It wasn't. There are some things that aren't a work. And look, you never know. They might settle the differences. I'm not sure. But, yeah, I tend to lean into this one that it probably wasn't work. Considering all of the stuff that's gone on in AEW, I would tend to lean to, when this kind of stuff comes out, it's probably true. Particularly in AEW, particularly the track record of stuff going on backstage, it tends to be true, unfortunately. And that's the problem. The problem is that we're talking about the biggest show they've ever done and breaking records, but there's a subplot to it, and there's a story that will come out of it, and there's a story that will most likely dominate the headlines tomorrow and for the next few days as to what AEW does. What do they react? Do they do another investigation? Do they put Jack Perry on the side of the arena that the Elite are in? Does Jack Perry just become a Dynamite guy and not a Collision guy? Well, what do they do? I mean, to be honest, I was floored by the match order involved in this for this show, because we go to this match. Afterwards, we had 2 Elite matches. I was convinced that if Punk's starting the show, that means the tag title match and the trios match are coming way later on. It must, because we know they're on separate sides of the arena. And when Punk went back through the go position, the gorilla position, whatever you want to call it, there's no way he wouldn't have seen Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. Unless like it's just they're coming from all kind of different sides, or there's a way in, there's a way out and a way in. You know what I mean? And when he goes in, he goes straight out. He doesn't go through Gorilla, and he just goes straight the other direction. And that's the only way I can think, because they must have been there. So that to me is quite, I thought was curious. Nevertheless, getting on to this match. Real World Championship. CM Punk retains, as one would expect. I didn't expect Samoa Joe to win this one. Punk was... It was funny because when he came out, he did look like he was enjoying himself, and he did look like, he was drinking in the atmosphere. It did look like he was trolling the crowd to an extent. And it's funny when you put things into perspective. Did CM Punk come out there with not much of a care in the world? And did CM Punk come out there being like, do what I want, because he knows he's in trouble? Did CM Punk come out there with a chip on his shoulder because he's like, F this place, I've just had this confrontation with this guy? Did he come out there being like, this might be my last match for a while because I've just taken a swing at a guy? Like, what would he have been thinking? And also as well, Samoa Joe would have been in the gorilla position. So Samoa Joe must have seen it too. So what's Joe saying to Punk before they go out? They both saying to each other, "Hey, that was crazy. what happened backstage? I know we got to do a match though." And the match itself was good. Is it like the CM Punk Samoa Joe classic of the Ring of Honor days? No, of course it wasn't. I mean, and it's never gonna be. I think if you went into it with the expectations of that, then you would have always been let down. I did think it was fun. I enjoyed the spots with the John Cena spots, the Hulk Hogan spots, and CM Punk again just being this new version, polarizing Punk. That's basically it, polarizing Punk. Samoa Joe, I thought he did his job very, very well. They had lots of sort of different telegraph spots. It was a fun opener. It was the right opener. The crowd was enjoyed it, and as I mentioned, Punk gets the victory. Punk gets the victory, pins Joe, and I guess now they move on. I guess now they move on into their into whatever feuds they're going to be moving into. I'm not sure. I mean, thinking of from Punk's point of view, I'd be surprised if he wasn't. Well, I was going to say I'd be surprised if he wasn't booked on All Out, considering it's at the United Center next week. But given the fallout of Brawl In, is it? I mean, what does his immediate future look like in AEW? Considering the circumstances, right? I mean, let me know what you think. Is this a situation whereby Punk gets sent home again? Does Punk get suspended like what happened last time? What happens? Do they try and find the truth of this? Do they just get through to next weekend because it's Chicago? They're going to have CM Punk chants all night next week, all night, irrespective of whether he's there or not. And they'll want him to be there because it's the United Center. It's a big arena in his hometown. So I guess we'll find out something this week as to what they're going to do, and we'll find out in the immediate aftermath what happens with this. But as of right now, he's still the real world champion, and his future, we'll wait and see. Same with Jack Perry. I mean, according to one report, Jack Perry's immediate future was not inside Wembley Stadium because he was sent away. He was told to leave and Punk wasn't. I don't think CM Punk is going to be part of the media scrum unless, I'm mistaken. I don't think that will probably be the case. I mean, I'm just double checking now again whilst we're live just to, just in case. I mean, let me just check here because I think the general consensus is no way they'd put a live mic in front of CM Punk today. No way. If AEW does do that, if AEW does put a live mic in front of CM Punk at a media scrum today, again, nearly a year to the day, when the same thing happened last year, that would be crazy. I don't think. Yeah, that's crazy. What are people saying on Twitter? Tony Khan needs to Todd everything in his power, offer a boatload of money to make Kenny Omega happen. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so look, lots of people saying when it comes to the CM Punk situation this time next year. Actually, that's a point too. Let me know in the live chat. What do you think, or what should be the main event of the show a year today? Because a year to this weekend when they come back for next year's All In event. What should the main event be, realistically? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts about it. So there you go. Yeah, CM Punk retains the real world championship. And then, as I mentioned, surprisingly, really, really surprisingly, we had the trios match. Now, I say surprisingly just because I thought there's no way they'll do Punk's match and then the Elite's match because they'll have to be too close together. But clearly they did. And no confrontation happened between them unless CM Punk just went fully crazy backstage when he came back. I don't know. As far as this match, surprising outcome somewhat because Konosuke Takeshita has pinned Kenny Omega. Yes, it was a roll-up. And there have been rumors that we were going to be getting Kenny Omega versus Takeshita at All Out. So that's very much possible to be announced for next week's event and next week's show. And I think they might go in that direction. As far as the match, I think the best way to describe it would be chaotic. The thing is, sometimes that with these sort of elite matches, the story might not make a ton of sense. And I tell you what, Rick Knox, he might be the worst referee of all time in terms of, and it's almost like a meme at this point, isn't it? Of his inability to maintain control in tag team matches. At one point, Jim Ross was on commentary and he literally said out loud, I have no idea who the legal man is. I have no idea what's going on. Rick Knox, disqualify someone. Or you can disqualify someone, right? You know you can do something. Please, like, do something. So it was chaotic from that point. Kota Ibushi, I still have some reservations about just how healthy he is, because he still does not look the same to me. He still looks rusty. I mean, you can see that picture there to my right on the screen. He doesn't look like that at the moment. I still have a feeling that his shoulder is still bad. Bear in mind, he had the shoulder injury in, October 2021 against Kazuchika Okada in the G1 Climax final. And he decided not to get surgery on it. He had a lot of setbacks. Eventually left New Japan. He had his first match since then during WrestleMania weekend for GCW. And like the day before, or a couple of days before it was announced, he's re-injured it. He's hurt himself again. That was the report kind of at the time. And he just, physically, he doesn't look there. He looked sluggish as well. And it kind of looked like at points he was a bit lost as to where he was meant to be in the match. At one point, they were doing a spot where him and Omega were going to do float overs and then moonsaults from sort of the middle turnbuckle to the outside. He slipped. He just looks a bit off for me. He just looks off, in my opinion. And again, I don't know if that's rustiness. I was hoping that, because we saw him at Blood and Guts. Sirens. We heard him at Blood and Guts. Saw him at Blood and Guts, and I thought, maybe again it's just rustiness. He just needs more time to work out, get in better ring shape. But it didn't look a lot better tonight. Nevertheless, as I mentioned, the closing moments of the match saw Konosuke Takeshita pin Kenny Omega, which I think is going to build up to a match probably next week. I think that's eventually what we get to. So I wouldn't be shocked if that's announced later on in the week as well. Next match was for the Tag Team Championships. And by the way, if you haven't already, click the like button. We've got nearly 300 people watching. We're currently at 85 likes. So we are 15 likes away from 100. So if you haven't already, click that like button and be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Tag Team Championships. Yes. Surprised by this outcome because FTR have retained the AEW World Tag Team Championships. I was leaning towards the Young Bucks winning this one for a few reasons. One being that it's an elite show, isn't it? The point being is that there were three people really that booked and sort of created Allin 5 years ago. It was the Young Bucks and it was Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is in WWE now. The Young Bucks are kind of the last hangover of that. I thought, wow, 5 years later, it's basically, I know it's Tony Khan's company, but you know they're part of the elite in All Elite Wrestling, and particularly with Cash Wheeler's circumstances. Obviously, he's got the legal issues going on. It might turn up into absolute nothing, you know, proof and all that kind of stuff. It's an ongoing situation. Didn't stop him from traveling or anything like that. I'm not a legal expert, so I don't know how that one would play out. But I thought it probably makes sense to put the titles on the Bucks. But they didn't go that route. Instead, FTR retained the AEW World Tag Team Championships, hitting actually hit an FTR trigger and then a shatter machine. They actually countered. I love this finish. So it looks like they're going to go for, I don't even know what the move's called anymore. Is it the Meltzer Driver, the Indie Taker, whatever you want to call it? They counter it into a shatter machine. And realistically, it's a match that had everything. And I think that what was really, really impressive about this one, because it's such a hybrid, you've got a Young Bucks style, which, let's face it, doesn't have a lot of psychology. It's kind of just high spot, high spot, high spot, and the transitions, there aren't really any, or they don't make a lot of sense. You've then got FTR that's very much psychology, very much old school tag team wrestling, very much focused on that. And so the matches we've seen in the past have been good, but I think this is probably their best one that they've done of the trilogy. I think that it's probably the best match of the trilogy that they've had in the matches. And FTR, let's face it, they're on one hell of a run at the moment in terms of the matches that they're putting on. Whether it's the two matches they had against Bullet Club Gold, whether it's the match that was they had on Dynamite that was 2 out of 3 falls went for an hour, or the one they had the week prior before that, or it's the match they had against Better Than You Baby. They're just having continuous match after match after match after match. Like, the role that they're on and the matches they're putting on at the moment, I mean, it's almost career-defining matches, really, isn't it? So, again, I think that they're incredibly impressive. I think that I was kind of surprised, but I do think ultimately it's the right call. And clearly, again, they're laying the foundation for something more, because the angle after the match is FTR. They're out there. They put their hands out. They say, look, we won. You're an incredible tag team. Shake our hands. And the Bucks walk away. The Bucks walk away and they don't shake their hands. So I guess maybe are they the heel team now involved? Because that's curious, because Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, they certainly are not heels. So what does that mean for the Elite moving forward? Or is this just a case of they're frustrated and they're angry with themselves? I don't know. Either team's not going anywhere anytime soon, because the Young Bucks just signed new long-term deals with AEW. FTR signed new long-term deals earlier this year with AEW. So neither team's going anywhere anytime soon. So I think this was probably... the siren's in the chat, you can let me know. Probably my match of the night, this one. I thought this was excellent. I thought this was very well done. To be honest, I'll be very, very honest when it comes to this with the Young Bucks. I can be one of those people that kind of takes it or leave it when it comes to them and their matches. Sometimes it is too much for me. Sometimes the super kicks are too much for me. Sometimes the sort of lack of psychology is a bit too much for me. I'll never denigrate it, because, again, I think it's important to understand that on a pro wrestling show, not everything is going to be for you. And you kind of just have to appreciate that. And you kind of have to just say, oh, wait a minute here. The sirens are probably for Jack Perry and CM Punk. Tony Khan, here we go. Tony Khan is at the media scrum right now. And Tony Khan has just said, this is some breaking news. Tony Khan has confirmed there was a physical incident tonight before the pay-per-view went on the air, as reported by Fightful Select. He cannot comment on it as it's under investigation. So Tony Khan has confirmed, indeed, that this incident did happen. He has said, and I quote, "Yes, there was an incident before we went on the air. It's being investigated, but I can't say more than that right now." That's Tony Khan's quote and comment about the CM Punk Jack Perry incident. So, again, those people that say it didn't happen, Tony Khan is confirming it can't happen, but he's not saying any more about it. As far as confirmation on the details of it, as I mentioned, there will be a video coming later today. We will confirm that later on. But Tony Khan has indeed confirmed incident did take place, but he can't say any more than that. So, indeed, that is accurate reporting, I suppose. I mean, and Lil Yo says that's a lot more than Tony Khan would normally say. Well, certainly on things like that, he just usually goes, "It's a great question," and I think I really appreciate the question, guys. I really appreciate the question, but I just can't comment. I just can't comment on that. That's the Tony Khan response in what he does. But he's confirmed that it has happened, and he probably knew. Look, before he went into that room, chances are there's a PR person there. There's the head of legal, Mega Perek. What do we say? It's out. Everyone knows it's happened. What do we say? Say, just confirm it happened. We can't talk about it. That's it. You know, you can't deny it. Or I suppose that you would sometimes just go no comment. But it's confirmed indeed that it did happen and it's under investigation. Next match was the Stadium Stampede match, and my goodness me, I mean, talk about a match that did have, I mean, everything. And when I say everything, probably every weapon you can probably ever think of involved in this one. Nevertheless, Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, and the Best Friends and Penta El Zero Miedo win this one, defeating the Blackpool Combat Club with Santana and Ortiz. When I say everything, this match had, and is not limited to, I'm probably forgetting stuff, honestly, but it had barbed wire, skewers, Trent's mom, Sue, in a minivan, Eddie Kingston being glassed in the Royal Box, a Penta El Zero injury that turned into a wardrobe change and a character change. You had a ladder breaking. What else did you have in there as weapons? Table spots. You had, glass as well, because that's the finish. The finish is that Orange Cassidy has a bottle. He breaks it into a bucket. He tapes up his fist. He rolls his fist in the glass. And eventually, as time goes on, he hits the orange punch on, I believe it was Claudio Castagnoli, with the glass, gets the pinfall. Jon Moxley might have broken a record in this one. He was bleeding, genuinely, I believe, like 30 seconds into the match. I mean, it was that quick that he was bleeding in this one. It was chaotic. It was everywhere. I do think that they probably tried to get too much into too short of a period of time. I mean, look, this is what the match is meant to be. It's not meant to be scientific. It's meant to be everywhere, chaos, all that you can think of. It does kind of feel like, though, and I wonder what you guys think about this, it does kind of feel like that's just what the Blackpool Combat Club are kind of doing on pay-per-views now. They're doing these big multi-man matchups, whether it's Anarchy in the Arena, whether it's Blood and Guts, whether it's Stadium Stampede, that they're just doing this version of the same match every big event, which is ultra violent craziness. I mean, every time there was something that you would go, I don't know if I'd do that, it meant that Moxley was going to do it. Whether it was going through, again, barbed wire, whether it was, going into glass, whether it was being skewered in the head. I mean, Moxley did everything. It just feels like that's the match he wants to do at the moment. The fallout from this one, to me, seemingly, is going to be Moxley versus Kingston. They had a spot where they both went through barbed wire board, and at the end, Eddie Kingston was flipping the finger to Jon Moxley. So I feel like that's the direction this one is headed in. Santana and Ortiz, it was good to see them back. I mean, Ortiz, botched a superplex through a table, but eventually he was fine in there as well. I think that's... I think the direction is probably Eddie Kingston versus Moxley. I'd still like, honestly, Orange Cassidy's defended the International Championship for such a long time. I'd be open to Moxley winning that bout. Moxley wins it, and I think Orange Cassidy's done a really good job in elevating it. The International Championship at this point means more than the TNT Championship, which is a credit to Orange Cassidy. But eventually he has to drop it, and I would like to see him drop it to a Moxley or someone like that, and just again further elevate it and have him go on a long run too, or have Moxley feud with Orange Cassidy for a while. Why not? Talk about different. I mean, Orange Cassidy got violent in this one too. So for me, was maybe a bit too much, maybe a bit too chaotic, but what do we expect as well? Because that's kind of the point of the match, isn't it? But the best friends, Eddie Kingston and Orange Cassidy, win that one. Now, this is a polarizing one because we have a brand new AEW Women's World Champion, folks, and her name is Saraya. Yes, Saraya is the Women's Champion, winning the championship in her home country. The story, basically, this one, Saraya comes out, she's with her family. The Knight family, of course, very famous wrestling family here in the UK. They're all sitting at ringside, and the story they were playing to was Toni Storm and Saraya. They're part of the Outcasts, so what are they doing? Are they going to get on? Are they on the same page? They had a couple of tease spots where they weren't getting along. But they do a spot on the outside of the ring where Saraya's mother holds, I believe it's Shida, or it might be Britt Baker, I forget. But she's holding someone. Toni Storm goes to give her a forearm. They duck. Bang. Hits Mama Knight in the face. And Saraya's like, what? What? And this eventually leads to Saraya fighting and attacking Toni Storm. They split up. We have a part in the match where it looks like maybe Britt Baker's going to win because they have...
Tell me, he didn't just say that.
Oh, Holmes with the 5. We'll get to that in just a second. I love those super chats. But there's a spot where, yes, Britt Baker has Hikaru Shida in the lockjaw, and then in comes Saraya with the spray paint, sprays it into the face of Toni Storm, hits her finisher, and pins her and gets the win. So Saraya is the new women's champion. Now, from the story point of view, it's a heck of a story, isn't it? Saraya, 5 years ago, before AEW All-In was even a thing, end of 2017, she had the injury in the match. Sasha Banks kicked her in the back of the neck. Hold your thoughts on Sasha Banks as well. Kicks her in the back of the neck, forced to retire after having neck surgery anyway. 5 years later, she's winning the AEW or Women's World Championship in front of the largest paid attendance ever in her home country. It's a heck of a story. And look, in terms of the biggest star in this match, Saraya clearly is. She's the biggest star of this match. Is this the right move? Most likely not, honestly. Saraya doesn't wrestle that often. She is still working up, I think, to wrestling on a more regular basis. She said that when she was cleared, the doctor said, maybe have a look at it where it's a match a month, or maybe something like that. So in terms of the schedule that she can she do a schedule that Hikaru Shida could? No. Does Saraya becoming the women's champion, does it really benefit the division? I don't think it does, unless they think, well, if Saraya is the champion, we can put her in main events on television and she'll draw. I don't know. My feeling is that it might just be a situation whereby she drops it next week. She drops it next week at All Out. She won't hold the title for that long. Because also as well, you forget with Saraya, she's not even at every TV. Also, she's there most of the time, not wrestling, but she's not even at every TV. So in terms of, does this benefit the women's division? You could argue in terms of exposure, maybe. But in terms of longevity, unless she puts over someone, an up-and-comer, then I don't know if it does. I mean, they might... The difficult thing is as well, you would think this time next year, if they could get to a match that was, say, Saraya versus Jamie Hayter at Wembley, 2 Brits, Women's Championship, that would be a big match. That would be a very big match for AEW to do. Does that mean Saraya holds the championship for a year? I really wouldn't like that to be the case. I don't think that's wise either. So I haven't seen the reaction that much on social media with this, but I can't imagine it was particularly positive. Earl Holmes, you saw it up on the screen there, gifted the $5 super chat. Appreciate you, Earl. Appreciate the contribution. Appreciate the support for the channel. As you saw with a super chat as well, they appear on the screen as well as it does if you're a new subscriber too. So if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right hand corner. And you see it was 5, so you got Booker T. Five-time WCW champion. It basically works. Next up was the Coffin match, and Sting and Darby Allin, still undefeated as a tag team, which they were always going to be. Sting's a madman. And as time goes on, the more worried I get with Sting, because he's 64. You have to remind yourself, Sting is 64. He is still putting in the effort. He's still putting in the work. The entrance was great as well. They came out to Metallica, Search and Destroy, which was awesome. They had a video of Sting as Jack the Ripper as well, with a bit of the Joker there. And there's only so much he can do, obviously. He does Sting a splash. He takes a couple of crazy bumps. That's about it. But they've got a formula with Sting and Darby. For these pay-per-view matches, whenever they do them on Dynamite, they've got a formula with these two. And it's kind of, again, like a variation of the same match every time, but it works. It works every time I come out of it. Is it like a 5-star match? Of course it's not. Of course it's not 5-star. It's never going to be. Sting's, again, he's 64. It's never going to be a 5-star match, but I come out of it and I go, that was fun. And I think that's the best way I can describe these kind of matches with Sting and Darby at this point, is I still find them fun. And Swerve Strickland, eventually, he's the one that gets the coffin closed on him. We know Darby Allin's going to be challenging Luchasaurus this time next week for the TNT Championship. Should he win? It's a really good question, because I'd like to see Darby win that championship and go on a long run and try and establish or re-establish that bout as meaning something again, because it's been hot potatoed so much. But at the same time, I really like the story of Christian Cage as the TNT champion, even though he's not the TNT champion. I still like and appreciate that story. But given the spotlight that Darby's been getting recently, part of me does think that most likely we're probably heading in a direction that Darby wins the TNT championship. And then, like I said, I think goes on a long run. I would hope anyway. But I enjoyed this. There's not really much more to say about it. I enjoyed it. I thought it featured good spots. I mean, the best spot I think was probably an unintended one, which was Sting meant to put Strickland through the table. He didn't go through, so he just got on the apron and went for a leg drop. I mean, technically as well, and this will be the point that people will be making out, Swerve Strickland wasn't completely in the coffin because his dreads were kind of hanging out of it, and maybe that's something they lay into. I don't know. As Luio just says, there you go. The dreads were sticking out at the end, so maybe they try and push towards that moving forward. I don't know. Next up, Jericho versus Ospreay, and this is exactly what should have happened. No interference, no shenanigans. In the middle of the ring, Chris Jericho puts over Will Ospreay. 1, 2, 3. That is Chris Jericho doing the favors, I think, as much as he possibly could. No shenanigans, no nothing. This is Chris Jericho saying, I think Will Ospreay's the guy. I mean, Jericho has said it in recent interviews, hasn't he? He believes that Will Ospreay is the best in the world, or is going to be the future star, or the future, best wrestler in the world for the next decade or longer. And you could tell that in his home country, he said, there you go, I'll give you the honors. I'll put you over in the middle of the ring. Now, I don't know what Will Ospreay's situation is. Will Ospreay, he said his contract's expiring with New Japan Pro Wrestling in 6 months. I found it curious that when he said that last Wednesday, people are, is he going to AEW? everything that Will Ospreay's ever said, particularly in recent history, was that he never wants to leave New Japan Pro Wrestling. He said he wants to be, New Japan's version of AJ Styles. He wants to be New Japan's version of whoever, of Sting and WCW, of like the guy that, that people associate the most with that company. I don't know. I don't know if he really does intend on leaving. And maybe this was Jericho's attempt to be like, look, I'll put you over in the middle of the ring if you come to AEW in your home country. Either way, it was the right move. Jericho kept up very well. It wasn't the match that I really, wanted to see Ospreay in, realistically, heading into All Out. But I think Jericho kept up. I think that Jericho held his own, certainly in the match. The entrances, the Jericho Fozzy entrance was kind of a bit crazy, but, you can say that he played Wembley, which I'm sure he's very happy about as well. And the finish is very curious because essentially he hits his finish once and Jericho kicks out, and then he's going to go for the hidden blade. And Jericho just almost Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels-esque at WrestleMania 24 basically says, put it right there. Go on, give it to me. And he does. And then he hits his finish and then clean, middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3. And it was very, very poetic. Again, I felt that was a proper, torch passing moment. Well, maybe not torch passing, but like a moment where it was like, I'm telling people through my actions, this is the guy. Or this is a guy. This is going to be, he's a big deal. And it was quite poignant. And after the match, you've got Sammy Guevara in the ring with Jericho, and he's trying to say, look, Will Ospreay's good, man. You've got nothing to be ashamed of. He's half your age. He did incredible. And Jericho kind of shoves him off and looks really disappointed and despondent by himself, trying to figure out what's going on, because it's kind of like, I literally turned my back on all these people. I was going to join Don Callis' family. He turned on me, and I lost. And I put him over in the middle of the ring. Nothing happened. I wasn't good enough. So I don't know if they're going to tease like a Jericho, won't he retire, which no one will believe because we know he's got a long contract with AEW. He just signed it last year. So he's not going to retire, but you do feel like they're building up to Chris versus Sammy at some point. And I think the outcome of that will be the same. It will be Jericho putting over Sammy. And for people that call Jericho a clout vampire, which he can be, no doubt about it, Chris Jericho, he's, Hulk Hogan-esque in the sense of he sees who's getting over. He sees who's popular and he goes, I'll work with them. I'll work with them. Or always Triple H like, I'll work with them, I'll draw money with them, and I'll beat them as well. But eventually, when they do put the people over, it's a big deal. And that's what Jericho did tonight for Ospreay, and it was a very good match. Penultimate match was for the Trios Championships. We have brand new Trios Champions, as one would expect. It's Badass Billy Gunn and the Acclaimed. They defeated the House of Black. Probably, along with the women's match, probably, I would say low point, but by this point, show had been going on for a while, and you just kind of felt like the crowd was just like, no, we get the Acclaim's going to win, but let's get to the main event kind of situation. So there's not really too much to sort of talk about, really, when it comes to that. The Acclaim get the win. They hit a bunch of mic drops and all that kind of stuff on Brody King. And after the match, they have a situation whereby the House of Black, seemingly out of respect or a bit of a babyface turn, I guess, they give the belts to the Acclaims. Say, look, you passed the challenge. There's house rules, isn't there? And they took them off. They said, there you go. I'll give them to you. You beat us. Fair square. So what's next for the House of Black, I don't know. Malachi Black had said previously he'd requested that they be Collision exclusive. I guess they could be Collision exclusive. How they operate as a trios team moving forward. Maybe they start branching off into tag team stuff, or I don't know. Maybe we can get Malachi Black wrestling singles again, because you kind of forget during Aleister Black just what a single star he was and what incredible matches he was putting on. I know he has had some injury issues over the last 12 months, and that's why he's been primarily doing trios matches as well, is because he had a really bad back injury and he even contemplated retirement because of it. So I don't know if they take time off, I don't know if they take time away, or what they do. The trios division is a curious one as to who they would face next. The Acclaimed, you then look into, well, where are the heel trios that they face off against? That's going to be interesting. if Jack Perry was around, there's an argument to be made you could have Jack Perry back with Luchasaurus and Christian Cage, but I don't know what's going to happen with that one, and particularly with the feud that they'd had as well. So, yes, we have new trios champions in the Acclaimed, and it leads to our final match because MJF has retained the AEW World Championship. And when I say earlier on a match that had everything, this did have everything. This had a situation whereby before the match even starts, they put on the Better Than You Bebe shirts to say, we're putting on our jersey, we're still on the same team, we're still friends. And as the match went on, the story they basically told is they were both kind of scumbags. MJF is still a scumbag, but the story was that MJF has legitimately changed. You know, MJF, he could have done these things, and not even really dastardly things, just things to do to win the match he didn't want to do. Whether it's a tombstone on the on the announce table, whether it's the use of the Dynamite Diamond ring, whether it's all this kind of stuff, MJF didn't want to do that. He didn't want to be that guy. And Adam Cole was, I would say, more heelish than MJF involved in all of this. That's kind of really what he was doing. Eventually, I couldn't believe this at this point. I would have thought there's no way they'll end their biggest show ever like this. Double clothesline. That's their tag team finish. They hit a double clothesline. Bryce Remsburg goes down. He counts to 3. A double pin. In the biggest show they've ever done. A double pin. If that actually how they did it, and we're coming back next week for All Out, people would have lost their mind. And they didn't. Instead, Adam Cole grabs the microphone and says, no, we can't do this. MJF, 5 more minutes. Because the story was, of course, when they had that championship contender match, Adam Cole had him beat. He said to MJF, 5 more minutes, and MJF said, no chance, I'm not doing it. MJF, to show how much he's changed, picks up the microphone and says, no, we're not doing 5 more minutes. We're not leaving until we have an effing winner at Wembley. That's what they do. And then they had a ref bump where, well, they had a couple of ref bumps. One, they take Bryce Remsburg down. It was almost like a false ref bump because they bump into him, then they do the Eddie Guerrero stuff with the steel chairs. MJF puts the chair on his neck, and it's like, oh, is that how they're going to do it? They didn't do it like that. We then had, which might be one of the best ref bumps of all time, realistically, because what they did is Adam Cole goes for Panama Sunrise. They pull Bryce Remsburg in the way. Bryce Remsburg, fair play to him, took a Panama Sunrise. Ridiculous. A Panama Sunrise. It was nuts. So the ref's down. Roderick Strong comes out, low blows MJF, and they say, pin him. It's the slowest count ever. Lowest hits the boom. Slowest count ever. MJF kicks out. We then have a situation whereby Roderick Strong gives MJF the belt. Says, hit him with the belt. He doesn't do it. Small package. MJF retains. And as the show goes off the air, it's the reverse of what happened after the Collision match, where they didn't defeat FTR for the AEW Tag Team titles, where Adam Cole standing there, arms stretched out, says, do it. I knew it. I knew you were going to do it. Do it. Attack me. And MJF didn't do it. This time around, it's MJF says, I knew it. I knew you would attack me. Is this all you care about? You just care about the bout? I love you. Go on, do it. Do it. Hit me. Attack me. And he says no. He doesn't do it. So we go off the air with them still being friends. We go off the air with them not breaking up. We go off the air really with questions, which is, when are they going to turn? And who's going to turn? Is it going to be Adam Cole? Is it going to be MJF? Who's going to be the one to actually turn on who? I still believe coming out tonight it's probably going to be Adam Cole. The frustration of, I can't beat this guy, and this guy's now being so nice to him. I've got to do it. And he's had certain circumstances whereby he's been leaning into heelish stuff. He decided not to do the bad thing, and he lost because of it. So I still believe it's probably going to be Adam Cole is the guy to turn, I think. But we shall wait and see when it comes to that. So there you go, guys. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. A reminder, there will be a video coming very shortly regarding the latest, regarding CM Punk and Jack Perry, that incident too. And we'll have more details on that. Tomorrow also we'll have details and some other things coming out of All In. I'm sure there's plenty more details to get into. Really appreciate everyone that's tuned in tonight, that's subscribed, that's contributed. Really appreciate everyone that's subscribed recently. Again, I find it amazing. You guys even take the time out to not only watch but also interact, engage. It's really not lost to me, and it's very much appreciated. And this is always going to be my bread and butter. It's how I started doing content creation on YouTube, and it will never ever go away. It will never ever change. So thank you very much for tuning in. As I mentioned, stay tuned. More content coming later on today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Peace.